My name is Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. And I live here with my family here in Braddock, Pennsylvania, directly across the street from the Edgar Thomson plant, which was Andrew Carnegie's first steel mill. And it is essentially the birthplace of the American steel industry here. Can't do enough for Amazon. And everyone, I was like, they're doing play where, Amazon didn't move it.
What was the importance of steel and in general blue collar kind of manufacturing jobs in this region?
Steel was everything, and steel still is a critical national security issue. And that's something that we can't cede to foreign rivals. And I don't understand why we are not more zealous in our protection and our support of the industry. I never could understand that. These are thousands and thousands of family-sustaining union jobs. And as a Democrat, I mean, you have to be for the union way of life. And it doesn't get more union way of life given the fact that the modern American labor movement was actually helped birthed here, as well as the response to the Pinkertons and the other homestead strikes. So this is such a critical area. And now we've moved on to high tech and Silicon Valley, but I try to remind people that this was our Silicon Valley. The Mon Valley out here in Monongahela Valley was the Silicon Valley of its era.
Why are unions important?
The union way of life, to me personally, is sacred because it holds a very profoundly progressive but also effective belief at its core, is that you deserve to be rewarded for your hard work. This idea was radical at one point in time where you don't control the capital, but you control the productivity, and you are an important part of wealth creation, and you deserve to serve and you deserve to participate in that wealth that you create. And this idea that you work hard, you should have enough to live comfortably in dignity and not just getting by, scraping by, this idea that you deserve to live a good, solid, middle-class life. I've never met a greedy union worker, truthfully. These folks just want what they deserve, and that is their part of the American dream that they've helped create through incredibly difficult work under incredibly harsh circumstances, in many cases, lethal circumstances.
What does it mean for these towns around Pittsburgh and around the country when the blue-collar jobs start to leave?
It means that, well, there's a lot of ramifications. There's the moral one where it's like, well, these jobs are important, these jobs matter. And to let them be outsourced to a foreign country never made any sense to me, because these countries are going to manufacture whatever it is without the appropriate environmental and labor and other protocols in place. And we just throw up our hands and say, well, that's how capitalism works. I'm like, capitalism does work like that, but it doesn't always have to have that kind of an ending. And I find it incredibly outrageous when we, as members of the Democratic Party, don't lean in more to that. We lost a profound investment here across the street in the Edgar Thomson plant because local Democratic officials weren't zealous. We, as a state, jumped through hoops to attract Amazon, which is notoriously anti-union, and yet it was just a couple permits, and ultimately U.S. Steel was unable to make that billion-dollar investment that would have secured the union way of life for thousands of men and women here that depend on it.
Do you think the Democrats have not put enough focus into speaking to the blue-collar, suburban, exurban workers?
Yeah, for Democrats, it's got to be more than just showing up when you need a check, a vote, or endorsement. It's got to be about, this is what's important to me. This is what matters. And this facility would have produced the greenest steel in the world and the most environmentally advanced facility of its kind. I mean, our rivals, our foreign rivals, are cheering the development. It's like, hey, send it, keep shipping it overseas. And then we're going to wring our hands and be like, I wonder why they vote for the angry man in the red hat. It's like with good reason. It's like because we all can't work at Google. We all can't just start over at 45 or 50. I mean, I'm a 51-year-old man, and I wouldn't vote for somebody that just said, oh, hey, you need to get with the times, John. our party needs to get with the times too, and we still need to make shit in this country. And I'm always going to say that, and I've said it before. If I lose an election standing tall and with the men and women that require these kind of investments and this kind of affirmation to support this union way of life, I'm like, then so be it. Their jobs are more important than mine, and my job, I want to keep my job so long as I can only do that by telling the truth. And the truth is that we still need to make things in this country. Steel is critically important, and we squandered an opportunity here in Western Pennsylvania that will reverberate through steel making in this country. And the irony is doubled because this is where Andrew Carnegie and the American steel industry was born. They've been making steel across the street since 1875. I'm proud to live here. And we should be making steel long after I'm gone. And this would have been an opportunity to make sure that my own children could have witnessed steel being made here.
You touched upon something very interesting, and that is, this has historically been a Democratic neighborhood, a region. You talk about union members being historically Democratic voters. When I interview the union members, many of them voted for Trump, felt passionately for him. And of course,
I know they did. I know they did. We did an event. We did an event here in 2016, and I knew that at least half or more of the membership were going to vote for Donald Trump because Donald Trump spoke to their concerns. I don't think he really cared about the reality. But the fact that he was speaking to those concerns and he understood that you have to have a voice in this debate. We deliberately live here. We had the opportunity to live in the mansion for the lieutenant governor here in Pennsylvania, and we're the first lieutenant governor's family that ever rejected that. And this is where we live because I'm so proud of the fact that we live across the street from a steelworkers union hall, 1219. And the men and women were let down by Democrats in the past, and they were let down in this last tragedy with the loss of that massive reinvestment that should have been something we were all universally excited about. This idea that we have some, futuristic, gazoo with those ray guns, melting. Steel is a very intensive process, and it's critical for our infrastructure. It's critical to make automobiles that can achieve the fuel efficiency standards that we all need to reduce it. You can be very pro-environment, as I am, but also be pro-union and pro-steel too. In fact, in 2009, I was selected to kind of be the face of that blue-green alliance between the Sierra Club and the steelworkers, with the acknowledgement that you can't have the president, calling for stuff to be made in Pittsburgh when we aren't doing what we need to do here locally to welcome an industry and make them feel that this is where we still want you to be.
I think there's a narrative that can be very strong that the Trump voters are somehow bad people, and I'm sure some of them are. Yeah. But that's not the sense I get talking to them. So
I'm about who's reachable. Now, this idea that every voter is reachable just isn't true, and that we can say that about. There are Democrats that would never vote for a Republican, and there are Republicans that would never vote for a Democrat, and I get that. But if there's someone who's reachable and there's someone that plays things pretty much down the middle, then I want to make sure they hear my voice in that debate, and they understand where I come from and what I believe in. And it puts me at odds sometimes with my party because there are elements within there that are inflexible where we want to say, I saw a license plate on an electric car saying 0 CO2. And I'm like, no, it's not 0 CO2. You got your electricity to power your car from somewhere. And in Pennsylvania and in this country, 40% of it was from natural gas and 20% of it was from coal. And we have to acknowledge the truth. And I've said this repeatedly again. Republicans need to become honest and confront the reality of climate change, but Democrats need to become honest about our energy and what it takes to treat the legacy workers that have produced this energy, that have been incredibly vital part of the industrialization and our rise as a national manufacturing superpower. Two things can be true at the same time. And we as our party need to acknowledge that as well too. We cannot clap our Tinkerbell and put a bunch of solar panels on a steel mill and think that that's going to do the job. We have to be realistic, but if we can do it in an environmentally advanced way that is far in excess of anything else out there, we need to embrace that, because we need to keep steel as a strategic interest, quite frankly.
What happens when a mill like the one in this town closes and there's nothing there to replace it? What's the impact of employment of something like that?
It's awful. And it's just kind of one more like, oh, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, we could have done, and we should have done it differently out here. To be the only Democratic official that is out there and out front being enthusiastic about this type of investment is, I don't understand that. We moved heaven and earth for Amazon, and anyone can just, and anyone could have knew that was just some like sucker's Hunger game where it's like they knew where they were going. They were just like, hey, how much can you give us? U.S. Steel, they just needed a couple permits, and we have to be honest. And if I lose an election being honest, then so be it. But honestly, steel has been a part of the American experience, and this isn't a refusal to just get with the times. It's like, hey, great, Facebook wants to move to Pittsburgh or whatever, great, but we still need to make steel in this country. And if we can do it better and cleaner and more union friendly than anyone else in the world, why wouldn't we want to do it here? Why wouldn't we? This isn't building a new steel mill. This is the next iteration of steel, and American steel. And when it's gone, we can't say, oh, I wonder what happened. It's like, I know what happened. We lied to ourselves and thought, well, as long as it doesn't happen here, well, then that's going to mean better environmental outcomes, when it'll actually mean much worse. If we are all truly part of that one global family, if it's moved to China or India or other countries without the appropriate environmental safeguards, it's actually going to exacerbate the very climate change that Democrats like myself are understandably concerned with.
A lot of the folks that I talk to say that they've just lost faith that the government is trying to represent them. How do you win that faith back and bring people back into belief in the system?
I understand that, and from my point, my message isn't anything other than pro-union way of life. And if a Republican is anti-union, then that puts me at odds with that person. If a Democrat doesn't do enough to support the union way of life, that puts me at odds with them. I fundamentally embrace the union way of life as sacred, and I truly would never understand why anyone of any political stripe would seek to diminish or destroy or disband a union. It doesn't make any sense to me. These folks are playing it straight, honest, and they just deserve a quality middle-class existence that their value has added to the overall process. And at one point in time, that was a revolutionary idea, and people actually and literally died just a short mile from here in Homestead to stand up for that right. And it's constantly under siege, and I'll truly never understand that. Unions mean higher wages, it means better benefits, it means better communities, it means more prosperous for everybody. I mean, we've lost our way as a party if we ever forget that the union way of life should be the very base of our electoral pyramid. And I'll never understand why Republicans seemingly would love to make us all right to work or strip away those protections either. So for me, that's my personal truth, and I'm not ever going to be afraid of leaning into that truth. This idea that you need to break a group of people that just want a fair shake is perverse. And if you constantly abuse a system that has produced the great industrial power of the United States, it can break, it can go away. And we all need to acknowledge that. This is not about how fat your bottom line and your stock options and your paycheck can be. It's about the value that you create for the workers and their families, who in turn make stronger communities and make us a better, more prosperous, and more equitable country. And why on earth would that be antithetical to your goals as ownership of a mill. And we on the governmental side, again, a tragic outcome here just a few short weeks ago with the Mon Valley expansion. I mean, I'm lieutenant governor, and I know that $1.5 billion investments in any industry don't fall off the turnip truck. And why we would not fall over ourselves to embrace that and get that moving is something that I'll never understand. And I grieved. I mean, I knew that announcement was coming before it was made public, but I grieved knowing that because of what that means for the long-term prosperity of not only the region, but it also means for workers. And I would completely understand if they felt like they've been left out of the equation, because in some respects they were, because there must have been a calculation made that, they're not where the Democratic Party needs to be. And I'm like, I think that's exactly square center where the Democratic Party needs to be. And if that means, whatever that means to me, electorally speaking, I'm indifferent to. But I also know that it's the truth.